Hey there. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. It's free. I'll say that again. It's free. There are creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. You can make money from your podcast. Oh, yep, with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. Download the free Anchor app or go to Anchor FM to get started. Now it's time for the Big Bad Broadcast.
Did I ever tell you the story about Lane's Merge?
No.
Did you know that Lane's Merge almost got the part that Sid Fields took over in Abbott and Costello television show?
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, he wanted to merge into that lane with Sid Fields.
He's always trying to butt his way into everything.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's time now to welcome you to Bitchin' Baby Boomers.
Hello, bitchin' baby boomer army, armies of shaved monkeys, armies of everything. We have a great show for you today. We've had an amazing week. I am personally happy because my pool is finally finished.
Yay!
And we got to get out of here because I got to go to pool school.
Pool school.
It
But we
rhymes.
have our regular guest of our regular crazies, and we have Mike Grief.
Hey, shaving my monkeys.
There you go. That's what you call it now. That's what you call it. And then we have the mind reader, Joe Silky.
Woo! No monkeys there.
Yeah, no monkeys.
Totally monkeyless.
What is this? Looks like you do an impression of Bullwinkle. All right. And then we have Craig Mitchell, our Yoda.
What, wait, my cat just walked over with his food dish. No, you're not going to eat right now.
Oh,
Never mind.
Oh,
maybe you want to
my
feed that
God.
pussy.
Maybe you should take your glasses off when you do that bit.
What?
It looks like you got a cassette tape unraveled on your
I don't know.
glasses.
You have
I don't
one
know.
lens. You look like Bud Freeman.
Somebody get him a pencil. So,
But yeah, we've had an interesting week. All sorts of crazy things going on. I had a really bad dream the other night. I dreamed that the doctor said to me, I got to see how good your leg is. And I said, he goes, you got to see if you can walk on it. And as soon as I stepped on it, the whole bone fell out on the ground and shattered.
oh, that's
I
nice.
have no idea what that meant, but boy, I was glad to wake up. And what's going on with you, Mike?
Oh, I got to follow the bone falling out of my leg. Okay. Oh. Well, my bone stayed in, but no, you know.
We heard that.
We were talking about things that just aren't the same anymore, and what really kind of hit me was, you remember, I don't know why I remember this distinctly, but I remember flying in an airplane and there was a little ashtray. You could smoke on an airplane. Look, see there, you can. Well, I don't know about cigars and everything, but and see, I always thought the Mile High Club, meant, it's like you was smoking something different. And when I got a little older, I found out the Mile High Club meant something else. But all these things have changed. It's
Smoking.
like things smoking anywhere. You
Smoking on the airplane. I remember
Craig, you have your hand up?
Yes, I'm a member of the Mile High Club. Does it count if you're alone?
Yeah.
I saw a comic once on Letterman, and he said, how was your flight? And he goes, the most annoying flight in history. I sat 5.5 hours next to a crying baby that smoked.
Craig was alone. That's what they kept asking the stewardess for more blankets.
They
Next time I'll go in the bathroom.
Remember, you could smoke anywhere. You could smoke in restaurants.
Yeah.
That's like, that was crazy.
I know. My father used to smoke while he was eating. I mean, smokers. I'm great. I quit smoking 20 years ago, but I mean, he was great. I mean, he'd smoke while he was eating,
Actually, we have a video about smoking in a restaurant.
Really?
Yeah, I think so. Oh, yeah. You want to see it?
Yeah.
Let's see it.
Yeah.
I think we can work with the baker. Yeah, but that Messina guy's definitely got to go.
Excuse me. Gentlemen, this is a no-smoking section.
Oh, good thing you're not smoking, pal.
Don't you hate that?
Hey, I recognize John Mulrooney, but who was the hippie who got hit with the fire extinguisher?
With the poodle on his head.
But you have to understand, he had the Mike Reef attitude back then.
Yeah, that's it.
Good thing you're not smoking, pal.
That Messina guy's got to go, you know.
Oh, man. That was Hal Spear, our departed friend. Crazy.
How many takes did that take? Seriously, it was
One. It was a one-shot deal.
Really?
Knowing Mulrooney, I'm surprised he did it in one and didn't want to hit you 5 or 6 times with that fire extinguisher.
So the white on your face, that was from the fire extinguisher, right?
That was powder.
Oh, okay.
That was powder. That was a little production trick, Craig.
Oh, really?
That was my vial exploded.
Smoking and doing cocaine.
See, with me, that's it. If you give me a dozen powdered donuts, that's what I look like in 3 minutes.
Yeah.
That's what you look like. Yeah,
go ahead. Cocaine.
Right. Like the end of Scarface. Oh, man. What else can't you do anymore? Beepers. How about beepers?
Oh, my God. John, you still have one, right?
Well, just to get my drugs. No.
And that takes us back to the picture.
But I think every married guy that was having a baby back in, like, before cell phones had one of those for, like, the last couple of months. Joe, you remember I had one, right?
Yeah.
It was like as soon as that thing went off, you were like, oh, no, it's hospital time.
Really? They had beepers back then? I thought it was like those phones like from MASH that you had to like, wind up.
It was a telegraph. It was,
I remember stuff that you guys don't remember. I remember showdowns at high noon in front of the old saloon.
It wasn't too long after beepers got popular that people started abusing it. 911 was an emergency. Pretty soon it was like, I can't get the dishwasher to work. They were doing 911 for everything.
Yeah, I used to call Adam 12 for that.
Rita Malloy, really?
Sure, man. They'd come. They'd fix your washing machine.
How did you call them? You didn't call them on a payphone, did you?
There you go. Payphone.
That was a good segue.
Wow.
No one would have ever known that picture was coming out.
Thank you so much.
That was like actually more than a payphone. That was Superman's dressing room.
There you go. Come on, also, man, I would love to have one of those in my house, man. I'd love.
That's why the bottom of it was opaque.
Or
you wouldn't have to see Superman's package.
Or you wouldn't have to see Get Smart fall down through it.
There you go. Yeah, I always wondered, did Don Adams just like fall to his knees, or did they drop him? I have no idea to this day.
I don't know. Those are crazy.
And what'd you say about having it at home? The Brady Bunch beat you to it. They had to pay for it. Yeah, Marshall did too many calls.
Damn, that Mike Brady beat me again.
I believe what Marsha Brady had a birthday this week, right?
65.
Oh my God, Marsha's 65.
Marsha,
she's probably still hot.
Yeah, actually, we should get her on the show.
Yes, we should.
Get her on the show.
We should.
I'll be totally appropriate. I won't say, "Hey, you're still hot."
yes, you will.
Yes, I will.
I can't even talk about what just happened because it didn't happen yet.
Yeah.
In the world of magic.
Woo! Well, that's pretty much.
What else can't you do anymore?
Can't we do? Let's see. Okay, well, driving has changed because back in my day, this is how the kids went to school.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And they used to drive backwards.
The only thing I ever used the seatbelt for was to strangle my brother with. That's about it.
And then they used to have those horrible. Did you guys take driver's ed? They have those horrible movies, The Last Prom. Where the kid takes like one sip and then he mangles his girlfriend to him and they die. And then they put the mangled car in front of school. It's like, it was just horrible. But my friends and I, every time we'd be in the car, we'd be driving to the beach to go surfing, and my friend would go like this, next driver's ed movie. And that's all you have to say. And he'd hit the brakes. Like normally he'd go, "Eh!" We'd go flying over the back seat into the front, and we'd all hit our heads on the dashboard, like just like that.
What about in driver's ed, those simulated cars that you sat in?
Oh, those are great.
Hey, this is a true driver's ed story. I had this like greaser guy, like Mike Reeves' brother, in my class, and he was like, he goes, "This is such bullshit that they're going to make us go out and drive. I've been driving forever." So the teacher goes, "Why don't you drive first?" So he goes, "Yeah, no problem." He gets in, backs into the wall at like 20 miles an hour. And he goes, "I don't understand it. I had it in offer run." That's a true story. This idiot actually, that's how much he drove before.
Yeah.
R for run.
You know, it's fun. It's like when I got my motorcycle license. It's like, you know, you go, I took a class instead of going to the DMV, and I'm thinking, all right, it's just the easy way to get the license. And you think they're not going to teach me anything. I've been riding a motorcycle for, 40 years, whatever it is. And meanwhile, it's like, when you're out on the street, you have to go this cone, that cone, this cone, that cone. It's, it's like
go around all the cones without putting your foot down, right? Exactly. You put your foot down, they fail you.
Oh yeah, it's real strict, man. I had to,
Yeah,
I'll tell you what, I learned a lot, but try it on a Harley with 18-inch ape hangers. Yeah.
Not exactly safety approved.
Yeah.
Oh, here's a pleasant school memory that I can't share in, unfortunately. The mimeograph and how everybody loved it.
Mm. First shot of cocaine.
Yeah.
I remember those, and I remember everybody sniffing them.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't understand what that was all about. They're supposed to get you high?
No, it just smelled good. It was like addictive smell.
No, it was supposed to be getting you high.
No,
I don't
really?
remember getting high.
Yes, it was. Yeah, it was an alcohol in there.
Well, does the magic marker get you high? I love the smell. Remember the old magic markers?
Yeah.
I smelled them so much I got sniffles.
But Craig, how come you can't
What was that, Joe?
How come you can't smell?
I've never had a sense of smell. I can't really tell.
Wow.
That explains a lot, Craig.
Really?
That is, you must be ground zero COVID.
Yes, my name is. I'm COVID Craig. That's who I am.
Well, at least you got a sense of fashion.
And people always say to me, "Oh, you don't have a sense of smell. Can you taste?" I'm like, "Look at me. You think I can't taste?"
Maybe you got double taste instead of smell.
I mean, actually, I enjoy the texture. The texture is what I enjoy.
I enjoy the texture, Spike. The texture's good.
Right? Now, the granddaddy of photocopies was the photostat.
Yes.
It's a term that I used up until last week. Can I get a
I know. And I made the mistake of telling my yuppie son, I got to go to Staples and get something photostated. And he actually said to me, "Oh, good. When you get home, leave it next to your beeper."
Wow. That's like the computer, though. I remember the first computer. Not that I remember, but I saw a picture of like my father working on something from whenever, and the computer was the size of the whole room he was in was the computer.
Yeah. Yeah, and that also, remember answering machines? They used to be the size of VCRs. Look at the size of that thing.
Wow, look at that. It was a reel-to-reel recording, right?
Yeah, it was 2 cassettes, one for outgoing and one for ingoing. Wait, back to the computers. I remember when Joe, who's a graphic artist, bought his first computer. Remember that, Joe? What did the guy tell you?
It was a Commodore, right? No.
Oh, Compact.
The Commodore. Did it
guy,
sing?
Lionel Richie was there.
Lionel Richie.
The guy says to me, "Oh, this has got like, I don't know, 8 megs or something." He goes, "You're never going to want anything bigger than this."
No, it was 1 meg and 640K of RAM. And he goes, "This is all you'll ever need." I remember him telling you, "This is all you'll ever need for your whole life."
Hey, that's better than me. I went
John,
to Radio
your watch
Shack.
has like 50,000 times that right now.
When the first personal computers came out, I went to Radio Shack, and it was on sale. I bought a monitor, and I thought that was a computer. And I could never figure out how come I had a keyboard and just a monitor, and it just never would work.
And it would take you like a year and a half to figure it out?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That's crazy.
Until I
Joe, what do you remember? got any videos from Eunice this week?
Oh yeah, we working on something pretty interesting. It's actually a favorite of mine. I mean, it's one of my heroes. So Craig, let's roll the video.
And now, the Bitchin' Baby Boomers Radio.com is proud to present to you, from the four corners of the world, some of the most unusual, interesting stories or facts you ever see. This is Believe It, if you want. These extraordinary stories are true and filmed on location. Remember, believe it, if you want. Now your host, Joe Silva. Ed Big Daddy Roth. March 4th, 1932, April 4th, 2001, was an American artist, cartoonist, illustrator, pinstriper and custom car designer and builder who created the hot rod icon Rat Fink and other characters. Roth was a key figure in Southern California's custom culture and hot rod movement of the late 1950s and 1960s. Ed Big Daddy Roth, born and raised in Beverly Hills, California. Roth was born on March 4, 1932. When Ed was in school, he enjoyed drawing and studying English. Between assignments, Ed stayed on top of his classwork. Henry, his father, was very strict and kept the children out of trouble. He provided them with tools and a workshop for them to work on their projects. Ed's German cabinet maker father taught him how to build crazy things out of wood. Ed purchased his first automobile in 1946, shortly after the end of World War II. As for the car of his choosing, it was a 1933 Ford Coupe. Then he attended college to further his knowledge of automobile design. After graduating from high school, he pursued a degree in engineering. His engineering and physics classes, which had nothing to do with automobiles, bored him to tears. After joining the Air Force in 1951, Ed attended bombsight school in Denver to learn how to make maps. As a side gig, he became an accomplished barber. He began his military career in Africa, then spent 4 years in South Carolina before returning home. After serving in the military for 4 years, Ed was honorably discharged in 1955. Ed was married and had 5 sons. As an employee in Sears Display Department, Ed's after-hours job was to pinstripe cars. As his family grew, so did his debt. Ed began working full-time with the Barron and Kelly during the summer of 1958. From junkyard parts and newly developed composite material, called fiberglass, Ed built automobiles in his own garage. Ed's first automobile was a Little Jewel. Outlaw, proved that anyone could design and build a car, regardless of whether or not they had an automotive engineering degree. Just a bit of creativity, motorhead know-how and a lot of elbow grease were required. Presto! Beatnik Bandit and the Rotor were among his inventions, which were created in his garage, which also served as his studio. Ed Big Daddy Roth, a mad scientist and struggling artist who funded his inventions by selling drawings and t-shirts at drag events, became known to the public in his later years as Ed Roth. He would also airbrush his own t-shirts with monsters driving them. In droves, people would gather at his booth. Rat Fink was Ed Big Daddy Roth's most popular creation. Ed Big Daddy Roth became famous as a result of Rat Fink. Teenagers in the United States became enamored with Roth's Rat Fink t-shirts and Rat Fink model kits starting in 1963. Rat Fink, when his garage in Maywood, California, could no longer handle the workload, Big Daddy Roth moved his operation. Several people had to be hired in order for Ed's custom cars and t-shirts production to increase. Revel American offered model car kits for the Beatnik Bandit and Road Agent. Rat Fink and the Gang, a group of hot rodders, was also included in the model kit. A very interesting factoid is presented below. Revel paid Big Daddy Roth a 1-cent royalty on each model sold in 1963. Ed earned $32,000 that year as a result of his royalties. Now, do the math. They were so popular that they were named after Ed Big Daddy Roth. As well as Rat Fink, Dragnut and Mother's Worry, Mr. Gasser was a member of Ed Big Daddy Roth's gang and was known as Mr. as a result of their relatable stories and themes. The Ed Big Daddy Roth gang quickly became heroes among young children across the country. As a result of being different and weird, Finks and weirdos were portrayed as cool characters. Some of us will never forget the lesson learned from this experience. As a result of their flamboyant style, Rat Fink and his hot rodding crew have become rock art icons. As a result of its origins as surf musicians, this group is now found all over the globe. Ed Big Daddy Roth images have appeared on albums by Birthday Party, an Australian band, in 1981, Marco Almera's Voodoo Glow Skulls, and many others. Even a band uses the term Rat Fink. Roth is a fan and admirer of the Cramps and Rob Zombie of White Zombie. Roth's work is also available in tattoo parlors and art galleries. There are those who believe that Ed Big Daddy Roth's work is of a high artistic caliber. Frank Kozik and Coop, two other American cult artists, have also used Roth's art on concert posters. Ed Big Daddy Roth passed away on April 4, 2001. According to doctors, his death was caused by a heart attack. He has created a work of art that will endure for centuries. Rat Fink, his show cars, and his monsters still appeal to a wide range of young adults. Rat Fink and his gang will continue to capture Finks of all ages. Thanks, Ed.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool.
$32,000. They're making 1 cent per model. How many models? I can't even. I tried to do it on a calculator. I'm like,
It's a lot.
It's a lot.
I mean, what a generous company. 1 cent.
Yeah, but $32,000 in 1963.
I know, but it's still. You think they could have given him a nickel?
Well,
Yeah.
Yeah, but
You know,
the model sold for $1.
no, they were $2.95. Back then, I think they were $1.25 or something.
So cool though.
3,200,000 models.
Wow. And Rat Fink, man, I'll tell you what, that was at one time it was going to be one of my first tattoos, Rat Fink, but somebody talked me out of it. They said it was whatever, but that.
And I had an agent called Rat Bastard.
Rat Dirty Rat Bastard.
I remember I saved up my money and got my Big Daddy Roth shirt, and it was like a Woody with the Rat Fink driver with the stick shift coming through the roof with the surfboard on the back, and it said "Pray for Surf." And I think it was like $15 back then, which was a lot of money, but it was the coolest shirt. It was the coolest sweatshirt ever, man. I used to wear that everywhere. People go, "That is the coolest shirt."
I remember
they were airbrushed and everything, you know.
The stickers were all over notebooks in school. That they had the Rat Fink stickers.
And when they're talking about drag events, they're not talking about drag shows. They're talking about drag racing.
Well, anyway, we got to wrap this up because we got a great show. We got a great show today, and we have actually baby boomer royalty.
Yeah.
So with that said, I'm going to turn it over to Craig.
Yeah. Thank you, John. Yeah, it's a real honor to have Chris Costello as a guest. Of course, she is the she actually is the holder of the legacy for her dad and pretty much anything Abbott and Costello. But in her own right, she is an author. She has a wonderful podcast, and like her dad, she's a humanitarian, and I think you're going to love meeting her. So please welcome Chris Costello.
All right. Hello.
Hello.
How are you? Good morning.
Good
What an
morning.
honor. How are
Baby
you?
boomers.
Yes, we got the baby boomers.
Yeah, that's where we are. We're the Bitchin baby boomers, and
Yeah, I love that's such a '60s title, Bitchin.
Yeah. And you and I are the only ones that really get it. It's that surfing lingo that we were talking about.
is that what it is?
Yeah.
I remember the guy swinging the chain, the bitchin guy. What was the character's name? Joe.
Swinging the
Our logo.
Keep on trucking, guy.
Yeah. Anyway,
we're off to a rousing start.
yes.
So Chris, it's a pleasure to have you on the show, and like I said, you do so many things, but you came to my attention because you actually do uphold the legacy of your dad and Abbott and Costello, and you do it so well. And I just wondering if you had any. Well, I don't know, any thoughts. Like one of the things people want to know about is how your dad and Abbott and Costello got a start.
Well, first of all, we all uphold the legacy on both sides. Abbott's, Costello's. It's kind of like a joint effort amongst all of us. And but I think I always had this interest in the archival, aspect of dad and the family, and but of course, and that kind of threw me into it. I think back in my 40s, I really started to rev up the engines and get involved. And I loved getting together like with the fans. I mean, they're an amazing group of people, seriously. And I always remember that Dad always said it's because of my fans that I am where I am. And I never forgot that line that he said. And so I always say to them, it's because of all of you. You are the true keepers of the flame. You are the ones that keep that candle burning bright. So to me, it's always a big thank you to the fans of Abbott and Costello. But to answer your question, going way back, Dad and Bud, of course, both were in burlesque vaudeville separately before they came together. However, my dad did do a skit with Bud Abbott, the Lemon Bit, before they teamed up. And I think it was one of Dad's straight men who had gotten sick. And Bud happened to be on the bill that night. And Betty Abbott, Bud's wife, told me the story as to how the Lemon Bit was something that Bud had been doing long before, he teamed up with Dad. And he happened to be doing it that night. And it was a standard kind of a burlesque skit. So Dad eased into it. And that was the first time they performed together was with the Lemon Bit. I think that the chemistry between them is something you can't manufacture. You either have it or you don't. And I think both of them realized that they had this magical chemistry on stage. So Dad went off to play, I think it was the Orpheum in Chicago. I could be off on this, but I believe it's the Orpheum. And he got a telegram from Bud saying, when you get back, would you like to team up? And Dad said something like, yes, hold that spot. Don't do anything until I get back to New York. Went back to New York, and of course they teamed up in 1936. And the rest is really history.
And when did they make the jump from vaudeville to radio?
Oh boy. Well, Kate Smith, and to say something for a second, I did a wonderful podcast interview with Susie Andron and her husband Bob on her aunt Kate Smith, and that was their launching pad, was the Kate Smith show, which was started in I think 1938. And it was actually Kate Smith's show that gave them the springboard for Who's on First. Because, as I say in my book, Ted Collins did not think it was funny. He thought it was way too visual. He was very resistant in having him do it on the show. And Dad and Bud kind of plotted, between them how to get this skit on nationwide radio. And they waited until the last minute. And I think one of the new agents from William Morris who had signed them was there that night. And I interviewed him for my book. And he said, I was backstage. Bud and Lou comes in. Ted Collins passes him and says, have a good show tonight, boys. And I think Dad stopped him and said, whoa, Mr. Collins, very humbly, Mr. Collins, we have a problem. You have a problem. What's the problem? Well, the problem is we've exhausted all the material. We can't go on tonight because we just don't really have enough material. And he said, you've got to go on tonight. What are you telling me at the 11th hour? He says, do anything. Do that crazy baseball thing. And that's how they got it on the air. And the young agent, whose name right now escapes me, said he was standing there between them with sweat pouring down his face because he had to answer to the William Morris agency if anything went wrong. And he said, I was backstage the night they did it. And he said the audience, in-studio audience, just erupted into this mass applause and just cheering. And then the switchboard operator, I happened to find the switchboard operator who was working the switchboard that night. And she said, I think her name was Eileen Flores. She said, the whole switchboard lit up like a Christmas tree from callers calling in. And so, Kate Smith had a lot to do with them being first on radio. And then second, of course, launching Who's on First, which then launched them into Hollywood, as we know.
Greatest comedy bit of all time.
Oh, my God.
Oh, yeah.
I was thinking while you were talking that we're all comedians. And probably we wouldn't even be comedians if it wasn't for those early Abbott and Costello things that we just loved watching them make people laugh. We laughed, and I think that's how we got so into comedy.
Definitely a big influence for sure.
Yeah, without a doubt.
You're all New York boys, and believe me, New York, New Jersey. I've told people, I said, you get to the East Coast, you hit New York or New Jersey, whatever, along that whole Eastern corridor is Abbott and Costello territory because you grew up with WPIX, Channel 11, showing, Abbott and Costello constantly, whereas on the West Coast, there was this lapse of time to where there was nothing. So out here, you see a vast difference versus out on the East Coast.
Because I remember on Sundays watching a WPIX. There was the movie and then also I'm not sure what time this came in on, but watching the TV show. So you're always watching Abbott and Costello. They were great. My father loved them, and so it was like.
And on Saturday mornings.
I've had more people tell me how the routine was Sundays, or I think Sundays, we would go to Mass, we would come home, Mom would be cooking up the sauce on the stove, and we'd be sitting around the TV watching Abbott and Costello, the television show. I think Dad and Bud, especially Dad, because he produced it, would have been stunned. Because when they first produced the shows, it didn't survive, only 2 seasons. I just don't think it was ready, to pop. And it took, I think, the 60s to really get it out there. And so I credit all of you guys. You're all New Yorkers.
It was one of the first syndicated half-hour comedies, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And the crazy part about those shows are, like, now you'll see a show, and if you've seen it before and it's a rerun, you kind of go, those shows you could watch over and over and over, and they were funny every time. And if you knew what was coming, it was even funnier.
Well, that's very true. I mean, it was kind of like there was a storyline, but not a storyline. It was kind of like Crazy House, only in a 30-minute, half-hour show. But the fans love it. I mean, with the Facebook, we have like 4 or 5 Facebook groups, and they all bring up the television show, and the one person they really want all the information on, and we don't have is on Sid Fields, sadly.
Wow.
Well, didn't after Bud and Lou split, didn't Lou tour as Costello and Fields for a while?
No, I never heard that.
Really? That's what I actually heard that from. I don't know. I heard it from a reliable source, my ex-comedy partner, and
I think I'll take Chris's word over yours.
That.
Did they never performed even like for 1 or 2 nights?
No. I think Sid Fields, and this probably was before the split. Bud got sick or something, and I think Fields stepped in. But I don't think they ever did anything following the split, because after the split, Dad went on to do Wagon Train, GE Theater. He was getting ready to sign for Furiello on Broadway. He did the Steve Allen Show, did Cuba once or twice. So I don't know. I'll tell you who you need to have on this show, seriously, is the foremost authority historian on Abbott and Costello, Ron Palumbo, who authored the book Abbott and Costello in Hollywood, and the Universal film script series, Buck Privates and Hold That Ghost. He is a wealth of knowledge to the point where we, the estates, go to him when we have a question.
Wow.
So he's somebody that would be very good for your show.
Oh, cool. What I love about the story about Abbott and Costello is they were put in this movie called One Night in the Tropics, and they were put in as like a small extra piece, and they actually, even though they were not even close to being the stars in the movie, they became the focus of the movie, and that's how they got Buck Privates. Is that correct?
That's true. Well, One Night in the Tropics was a test film that Universal wanted to put them in to see how they would go over with a theater audience, movie-going audience. And the funny story, and I know this is in the book, so I'm going to repeat myself, but I interviewed Alan Jones, and he was a charming man. It was a telephone interview for my book. And he told me the story. He said, it was the first time I never exercised my editing rights on a film. And he said, Universal kept incorporating more and more and more Abbott and Costello routines. And he said, years ago, he said, I'm in South America. I'm walking down a street. There's a theater, marquee. And he says, I see the title, Abbott and Costello in One Night in the Tropics. And he looked up and he started laughing and he said, my first thought was, well, where the hell am I? And totally eliminating Nancy Kelly, Alan Jones, but it was Abbott and Costello.
Wow. That's great.
And then they did the Buck Privates after that. And Buck Privates, a lot of people don't realize, I don't remember if it was 1940 or 1941, that this was like Star Wars type kind of popularity. I mean, it was huge.
It was, well, it was. It was their first starring film. And of course, many of the studios were doing a lot of service films. And so I guess they felt it only natural to put Abbott and Costello into a service film. I know that the drill routine, Arthur Lubin was explaining to me when they were doing the drill routine. He said you could hear the crew cracking up laughing, and it was a constant, cut, quiet, roll them, and the crew would start stifling their chuckles and laughter. And he said, all of a sudden I had this idea, I'm just going to let the camera keep rolling. I'm not going to cut. I'm going to let them just take off on this, which he did. And he said, then of course in the editing bay, he said, we're looking at this footage we had taken, and it was so hysterical that we decided to keep in most of what they did.
That's awesome.
So, but in fact, they were notorious for ad-libbing. Anybody who ever worked with Abbott and Costello would say they were notorious for ad-libbing. And you can hear it in the drill routine when Dad breaks from, his dialogue and just turns to Bud and says, what time is it? And Bud says, never mind what time it is, and so they would do that. They would trip themselves up, and they did that with Who's on First once. And because they never did that routine the same way twice. And my sister can remember Las Vegas. I think it was at the Sahara when that was their last time to perform in Vegas as a team. And she said the family was all sitting ringside. They started going into Who's on First. The audience is laughing and laughing. All of a sudden, they noticed that Bud just had beads of perspiration on his brow, and Dad had taken off in a completely other direction, with Who's on First. And Bud was trying so desperately to get him back in to that point of departure. Now, nobody in the audience knew what was going on, but the family did. And they said that Dad had started ad-libbing. Well, ad-libbed himself so far out of left field that poor Bud was ready to have apoplexy, trying to bring him back in. It is the longest running Who's on First routine. I think it ran something like 20 minutes.
Oh, wow. So, is that on film anywhere?
I don't believe so. But sadly, that was the era where you didn't have your cell phones and you didn't have, the type of equipment you have today. But no, sadly.
Yeah. It's impossible to go through the whole filmography because I love so many of the films, but I want to touch on two specifically. My personal favorite, and there is some divisiveness among fans, but I love Hold That Ghost is possibly my favorite. And one of the reasons I love it is because it's so it's just really I think it's the second film they shot, even though it wasn't the second one they showed. They displayed, but him and Joan Davis.
Brilliant.
I actually asked you a question about that once, and you actually, I think you might have asked that gentleman, Ron Palumbo, about that. Because I always wondered why they didn't do more, because they were brilliant together.
Yeah, I think it was more of a contractual thing from Joan Davis's because she was doing so many films. And, it was like with Hillary Brooke in the TV show. A lot of people thought she had left the show because she no longer liked working on it. And I said, no, that's not true. Hillary and I became very dear friends, and she had said to me that, at the time she had other contractual commitments that she couldn't get out of. And so she had to leave the second season of the show, sadly, because all of the great characters, were not in that second season.
Right.
But so I think it was a great chemistry. I think the dance number and him slipping and sliding, is brilliant. He did all of that. That was his own stunts.
Oh, man. When he crashes into that piano, I double over. It's one of the funniest things ever. But, we did a poll. We have a Bitching Baby Boomers Facebook page, and I did a poll this week on your favorite Abbott and Costello film. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't even close. And I think you probably know. that the favorite, bar none, was Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein.
That's my favorite.
That's my favorite.
Yeah, I mean, it's
I
an
think the
incredible
three
film.
films that I hear most often that are the favorites would be, of course, number 1, Frankenstein, number 2, Hold That Ghost, and number 3, Time of Their Lives.
Oh, yeah.
And I love them all. I love the earlier films the best. And I do love Frankenstein. I watched it for the first time in a long time, I think a year or so ago.
It's
also at that age we liked anything with monsters in it.
Oh,
and
sure.
It was like we loved Frankenstein. So it was like, so have funny Frankenstein was just.
You can picture yourself as Lou, as your dad, being afraid of Frankenstein.
Right.
It's just, he was
I
such
think
an every
the
guy.
scene with him in the dungeon when he backs up and sits on Frankenstein's lap, not realizing it's his lap, and you see Frankenstein's hand slowly start to move along the arm of the chair towards Dad's hand. They broke up the outtakes. I mean, they could not stop laughing. Glenn Strange would just break character and just start laughing. And he said to somebody, "How can I do this scene when I have to look at the back of his head?" He said it was just so hysterical to him. But that was one of the best scenes, I think, for me. I love that.
Yeah, I mean, Bela Lugosi was in it. Lon Chaney Jr. was in it, correct? If I have the right.
That's correct.
And Glenn Strange, who to this day I can't watch Gunsmoke without seeing him as the bartender, and I think of Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein.
Well, here you go. I'm putting on my agent cap here. You've got to interview Julie Ream, who is Glenn Strange's cousin or niece.
Really?
She's wonderful. She does a lot on the legacy of Glenn Strange.
It's just, it's all interconnected. And I'm talking about, it's like the fabric of being a baby boomer. All of this kind of comes together and becomes one. And you mentioned earlier, by the way, which I just saw recently for the second time, Lou Costello on Wagon Train.
Oh, yeah.
And that is absolutely a stunning performance.
It is. Now you're going to hear a dog start to howl a minute because we've got a fire engine going down the street. And if he does start to howl, his name is Tyler. So I don't know.
Don't worry, we all have dogs.
We all have Tyler.
He's gearing up. He's sitting on the couch right now with his head going. It's elongating itself. Don't do it, Tyler. Don't do it.
As long as he doesn't turn into a werewolf, because we were just talking about Abbott Costello and Frankenstein. So,
well, you know what? I mean, when you think about that movie, what was really funny is I don't think there's anything funnier when he was scared.
Oh.
Yes.
You know what I mean? That's what made you just die. Like just his face and just it was just
Universal saw that. And they started to incorporate more of the scare looks in films with Dad.
Yeah.
Because it was so hysterically funny. And so I
starts like mumbling and like
yeah.
It's great. Yeah. It's great.
Did you ever think about doing comedy and doing physical stuff like them?
No.
Well, you said you didn't. You had improv classes, right? So you.
Well, yeah, years ago, but no, that's a big shadow to step into.
True.
And I really didn't have. I appreciate comedy. I love comedy. I love watching comedy today. Some of the contemporaries that just put me away are like Melissa McCarthy.
Yeah.
I mean, I could watch Melissa McCarthy films, 24/7. John Candy was another one of my favorites. But no, that was never in the scheme of things. No.
But it was funny with Abbott and Costello meets Frankenstein. Now I had a cousin that lived next door to me, and he was 5 years older. So I was like really young, and I would watch that movie with him and be fine. But then when it was time to go to bed, I was so afraid the monsters. It was crazy.
And that was just last year.
Yeah.
I was just I think a year old when my mother brought me onto the set, and this also was in the book, but brought me onto the set, And Glenn Strange was in his monster makeup, whatever. And I don't remember this at all, but he loved kids. When he saw me come onto the set with my mom, he got up from his chair and started walking towards me in those platform boots and with his arms outstretched, saying, "Come to Uncle Glenn." Well, they said that I let out such a blood curdling scream that Dad was saying, "Get her out of here. Just get her out of here." Get her out of here.
I experienced something like that. I worked with Freddy Krueger. What was his name? The guy who played Freddy.
Robert
Englund.
yes.
Robert Englund.
And everyone on the set was terrified of him. I mean, you could see the extras, these young girls and whatever, they were just terrified. They would stay as far away from him as they could, just like what you're talking about.
What a great actor.
Would they run away and just fall down for no reason?
Now, those movies really scared me. As an adult, they really scared me.
Yeah, I hated those movies. The slasher movies.
I've never actually seen them. So.
Oh yeah. But I wanted to say, just going back quickly to Wagon Train. I believe that was one of the last performances your dad gave, correct? The Wagon Train.
Uh-huh.
And it's a dramatic. A lot of people don't realize it was a dramatic turn when he did that, and he's just so amazing in it. And as a person myself, who's actually in recovery, it spoke to me very closely because he plays an alcoholic in there. And he was just magnificent in that. And I always wanted to give a chance to share that with you. And if you had any special memories of that.
Well, I remember that it was Howard Christie, actually, one of the ADs on their films, earlier films. And then he graduated being a producer on some of their films. It was Howard Christie who was producing or executive producing Wagon Train. And he knew Dad always wanted to try drama. And he said, "There is a script I want you to read. I would love for you to play the part of Tobias Jones."
So good.
And my dad jumped at it. But he was also very nervous about it because it would be the first time in his career where he would have to memorize the script. He couldn't ad lib, and he didn't have Bud there on the other end. So it really had him a little unnerved. And Howard Christie said, "I just remember the look of total fear at first when we gave him the script because he had to learn the script." And Dad loved doing it. He loved word bond. But you know who he gave all the credit to for him succeeding in that role was Beverly Washburn.
Oh,
he said it was because of Beverly that I got through this, and he always gave her credit for that.
Wow,
that's amazing. Yeah, I remember reading. I don't remember if it's in your book that she has nothing but great memories about working with him too.
Yeah. She's a good lady. Good lady.
And speaking of your book, I think one of the reasons why I feel I know so much about your dad and Abbott Costello is because of your book, and I wanted to bring that up because one of my secrets that I don't really tell people is I hate to read. I'm sorry, road signs, I ignore them. Anyway, no, I do. But I've read your book 2 times, and I'm going to actually start a third. This is a kind of a big picture. Sorry to cover you up, but this is the book you wrote, and I would love to hear some. And also, I think you have it's on audiobook, and there's also other promotions about it. I'd love to hear more.
Well, what we did with it, now the book, of course, was done in 1981, and it was published by St. Martin's Press. It lasted a record 22 years in print, which to me, wow. And during COVID, I was talking to, she's actually the producer on it, Pamela Wise, and she said, "Let's do the audiobook based on your book." Now you've got the time because everybody is being shut in and, shut down.
Right.
And we worked with this wonderful JMC Sound out of San Francisco, June Miller. And what we did with the audio version that the book does not have, is we have incorporated sound bites. So you get to hear some of the Abbott and Costello routines where they're placed in the book. Or we have Bud Abbott's address to the studio audience the night my brother, had passed away. Yeah. We even added in a bonus chapter because people always wanted to know what happened to everybody following your parents' death. Well, now we give them the bonus chapter and some little snippets at the end. So we're very proud of it. Came out November of last year, and it's been going really good. You can find it on any of your audiobook platforms, including Audible, Amazon. And then to add to it, for March of this year, in honor of Dad's birthday, we put out a limited version or limited quantity on the 10 CD collector set, which includes a insert, which I didn't send you, of the Costello family album, which I autograph.
Oh.
And I only had 100 made. Now, they cannot go out to Amazon or they can't purchase any place. They have to go through me because I self-funded the project. So we only have a limited amount in stock. But anybody that's interested, all they have to do is email me at accollectibles@aol.com.
Well, I'll be downloading the book today. I haven't gotten to hear it yet, but I will download it later.
And I narrate it, which is really cool.
Oh, very cool.
Oh, very cool.
I also have the website is I have it scrolling underneath you where they can find information about it there, correct?
Right, absolutely.
.com. Beautiful. And now here's the thing. I told you that I mentioned that you have a podcast. And my survival job, which means what I do so I can do this, is I'm a rideshare driver. And like I said, I popped it in yesterday when I was driving back from Fullerton. and I listened. And I listened to the one on vaudeville. Okay. And it was absolutely wonderful. I learned so much that I did not know. And of course, the name of your podcast is On Cue with Chris Costello. It's wonderful. And I got to say this. You have a magnificent voice.
You are so sweet.
Oh, my God. You must have done voiceovers. Come on. You had to.
I did a little bit, yeah. Back in the day. I
did not know that Sammy Davis Jr. was actually in vaudeville. I learned it from listening to that yesterday, as a matter of fact.
He's a wonderful interviewer. Rob Schneider, I believe, who does the whole. I mean, he's a walking historian on New York as well as the history of vaudeville. Also, we did a wonderful one with
Kate Smith, right?
Kate Smith, but also the history of Hollywood. It's not the birth of Hollywood. It's not where you may think, with Tom Myers. And that's a wonderful piece of information and history, with Tom. We're having fun with the shows. I like interviewing people that are breaking the glass ceilings or doing something that just, kind of brings you up. For instance, we interviewed Lieutenant Colonel Nicola Polidor, United States Air Force, Whiteman Air Force Base. She's only one of 10 female pilots that are qualified to fly the B-2 stealth bomber. And was the first time that she piloted the stealth going over the Rose Parade in 2020.
Wow. Really?
So, yeah. So we've got some really good guests.
I love it. It's just like it's very, like you said, it's very uplifting. It's very positive and informative, and I'm an instant fan. I just wanted to share.
You're so sweet. That one that you really would probably like as well is The Kiss That Silenced the War. The famous Life magazine photo of the nurse and the sailor kissing in the middle of Times Square. And we had the author on who actually knew Mendoza, the sailor, and Greta, and I can't think of her last name right now, the nurse, and how their identity was revealed because there were a lot of people out there claiming they were the nurse and the sailor.
That was a big controversy. Right?
It was, and he opens up about how they were finally able to prove that it was George Mendoza and this woman named Greta.
Wasn't it an unsolicited kiss too?
It's The Kiss That Silenced the War. And what we like to do, as you probably heard, is we bring in a lot of sound bites, which we love. The Kate Smith show that we did, wonderful. I learned so much about Kate Smith. And, there's so much love there with that family towards her. And also a lot of humor, which I love.
No,
it's an icon for the Philadelphia Flyers.
Yes.
True.
Yes.
John is also a big hockey fan as well.
Well, I remember when the Islanders were playing the Philadelphia Flyers. There was a 7th game in Philly, and they brought her out live years after retirement.
She was their good luck. She was their good luck charm.
To sing the national anthem, and before she could sing it, the captain of the Islanders skated up and gave her a dozen long stem roses.
Oh,
and the Flyer fans were really mad, and he goes, "No, I'm just a big fan."
I love it. I love it. You guys have got to bring up then the Kate Smith show, the episode we did on Kate Smith with her niece.
I'm driving again next week. I'll be listening.
Big surprise at the end.
Awesome. Well, I wanted to thank you for taking time out of your schedule. I know how busy you are to be here and talk about Abbott Costello, your dad, and also all the wonderful things you're doing.
Thank you.
We do have the website scrolling. Is there another way? Do you want to repeat your email so the people who want to get in contact?
Absolutely. It's just accollectibles@aol.com.
Great. And are you still accepting more people to be on your on the newsletter?
Oh, absolutely. All they have to do is when they email me is give me first and last name, city and state, or country and province, and we'll sign them up and send them our latest issue. And you get the newsletter, so you can,
it's a monthly newsletter, and it has got so much amazing information. It's not like a paragraph and see you next month. It's got a ton of
You're
information.
wonderful. Well, I gotta give credit where credit's due on that one too, because I got a great team with Jeff Salamando, who has the Abbott and Costello Always and Forever Facebook page, and Ron Palumbo, he helps out. And now we've got the Lou Costello's Patterson with Karen Cuccio. So you get to know everything that's going on in Patterson, including the new Costello Memorial Park. And we even brought in a trivia guy, Joe Savoya, who lends his talents with all the trivia. So we're having a good time with it. We welcome anybody.
That's great.
That's awesome.
That's really good.
Thank you again, Chris. It's a pleasure and a thrill.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you. Happy surfing.
Oh, thanks. Anytime you want to come back, let us know.
Yeah. Okay. Anytime. Beautiful. Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much.
Can I just say this? You guys are really bitching.
All right, John, back to you.
Well, hey, I hope you enjoyed our show as much as we did performing it for you, and thank our guest, Chris Costello. And just remember, when you go to Facebook and then you finally get to our YouTube page, subscribe. And you can find all of our old shows, our new shows on our website, which is www.thebbbbradio.com. Leave a comment.
Leave a comment. Yeah, say something. Say, hey, you guys are great, or hey, you guys suck, or hey, I'd like to see this guy on the show, or anything. Let us know.
We want to see Eunice even.
Yeah, what the hell is Eunice? Where is Eunice?
Eunice is working. She's always working.
Yeah, she's working way too hard.
She works hard, yeah. She's the hardest working person here.
She's working on the back part of your brain.
You can also find us on Twitter at the BBB Radio Podcast. And where else can you find us, Joe?
I don't know. That was my line. You stole it.
Out in the cosmos, man.
You can see us on Instagram or Twitter.
Yes.
And Joe, what are those addresses?
Greg knows, so I don't have to.
Yes, I already gave the Twitter, and the Instagram is Bitchin Baby Boomers at Instagram. And
what do you have to say, Mike?
I have to say that I'll be shaving monkeys all week, man. I'm getting my monkeys ready to do a monkey shave show.
We want to see a picture of those shaved monkeys.
Yes.
Well, you'll see pictures of the monkeys real soon.
Wait, the shaved monkey, that's not a euphemism, right? It's going to be a monkey.
We don't know, Craig.
Can't give out too much information,
Craig, we can only hope.
The government is listening, man, and they know, so I can't say too much.
All right, we're nuts. We're nuts, and we're having too much fun, and we're having more fun than you are listening to us.
Right.
So we're going to sign off right now.
See you next week.
Maybe.
Maybe.
My monkeys don't kill me.
Tune in next week to more Bitchin' Baby Boomers.